All right, today's topic is going to be on left hand technique. So, if you're joining this whole 30-day thing midstream here, I highly recommend going back to the introduction to kind of see what we started with. But the basic idea is talking about things that we can do to become better players that are outside of learning more scales and chords and stuff like that. But I think technique falls in there. So I'm going to just do kind of a quick little overview of some of my thoughts about left-hand technique, some of the techniques that I use. It's not going to get too intricate, but just want to answer some questions that I get a lot from students here in Portland or via Skype about what I do with my left hand. So I think of guitar playing as being mostly a right hand thing. The left hand is largely just doing these little patterns and shapes and stuff. I don't have as much to say about it, but I'll kind of give you a little overview here. I think, sort of position wise and I think technique wise, usually when I have a beginning student, I tell them, you want to get nice sort of round fingers, keep the wrist kind of straight, maybe bring the arm away from the body a little bit. Just kind of the basic stuff you hear about in classical guitar books and circles and whatnot, but just kind of coming at the guitar in a nice strong way with round fingers. And I usually tell people to really get up on the tips of the fingers and get up close to the frets. And there's a couple reasons for this. The closer to the fret you are, the less buzz you're going to get, but mainly it's because it takes less effort. And that's a big part of left-hand technique that I'm personally always checking in on with myself is, am I gripping the crap out of this thing? And this is hard because one of the hardest challenges I think for me sometimes is to play, I don't want to say hard because that's not a good word, but maybe with authority with my right hand, but not have the left hand match it. Sometimes I think it's like bench pressing or something. The hands just want to do, I don't know what the right term is. They want to have equal torque no matter what the job is. So that's an interesting challenge in itself to sort of try to play with more volume and maybe kind of gradually get louder and check in. See if your left hand wants to start gripping equally as loud and see if you can separate them. It's actually really hard. Maybe it's just me, but it's really hard. But the thing is that when the left hand, when the tension starts to creep in, it makes it so much harder to play. And then you start making mistakes. And then you don't feel so good about your playing. So then you start gripping harder. It's this vicious cycle. I can't tell you how many times I've about to go on like live radio to promote something or something. And if you're all geared up, for that, if you're all nervous or whatever, it's like you start just really gripping the guitar and it's just a recipe for disaster. So I've really learned to check in with my left hand and keep it relaxed. So go back to this kind of close to the fret business and everything and using a light left hand. So kind of a time-honored lesson that you can show people is to sort of fret a note or not fret a note, just sort of touch right now I'm trying to play my index finger on the second fret of the sixth string, and I'm not pressing down enough to get the note, so I'm getting that sound. I actually like that sound, but that's another lesson. But what I'm going to do is just as gradually as possible, I'm going to apply pressure until the note begins to sound. And then just sort of take a mental note of what does that feel like? What does that amount of torque feel like? It's really probably not that much, assuming your guitar's set up relatively well and you don't have giant strings or whatever. But generally, it's not going to be that much pressure. And then ask yourself, in fact, I can see light under my finger. I think that's a good thing to think about. I'm not trying to touch the bottom of the string to the wood, between the frets. I'm just trying to very lightly touch the bottom of the string to the top of the fret, and just using that light touch. So just check in with that and then see if you can sort of play maybe a scale and go really slowly and you're really listening to make sure that you're getting nice, clean, clear tones. And when you don't, if you hear one of these, you wouldn't be that tolerant if someone sang like that. So you wouldn't, I think you should take that same sort of discipline to the guitar. So go back and try to play through that scale and just really listen. But also with your left hand, just especially at this slow tempo, nice and relaxed, just really, I don't know how else to say it, check in, I guess, just be aware of how much pressure it's taking. And then maybe kind of try to play a little faster, and don't see if you can not forego having good tone and everything. So still checking in with that too. But notice as you're picking up the speed, are you kind of clamping down more? And if so, try to reverse that somehow. Just try to shut that off. Sometimes just knowing about this stuff is enough that you'll be able to be like, it's when we're unconscious, it's when we're on autopilot that we get in trouble. And as I think I've already said, but I'll just say it again, it's when tension creeps in, if you're a performer, or if you're just trying something difficult, or, if you're playing a blues thing, you're just trying to pack your whole day into one note. I mean, part of doing that is kind of bearing down for a second, but then you got to kind of move away from that again too, because you can't stay there, So just be aware of when tension comes in because, you're nervous, or because you're, trying to really pack your day into a note, or you're trying to do something really difficult or fast. Just be aware of that and try to keep pulling back. Especially with performance, this is still an ongoing thing for me. There's times when I just realize in the middle of it, like I am just really bearing down on this thing, and it is holding me back and causing more mistakes. And all right, you get the idea. So again, light touch, really be aware of it, close to the frets, nice round fingers. That should allow some of the open strings to ring out against the fretted strings. That's kind of it for left-hand technique. It's a little out of the scope of what I wanted to do with this series for me to talk about hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides and stuff. Maybe I'll touch on it really quick, but again, I think that with all of those things, just put tone first. Like if I was going to teach someone how to do a hammer-on, I would describe the movement, which if you don't know, is just sort of picking one note and just sort of applying the next one. But what I'm trying to be conscious of is that they're of equal volume, or maybe the idea is to increase the volume, make the second one louder. But the main thing is to be sort of conscious of the tone and make sure you're getting what you want. And then also the rhythmic value. Sometimes people do hammer-ons and they rush it. I think we all do that. And the same thing with pull-offs and everything else. But you just want to make sure that you're aware of what you're doing. You're not just trying to get through the movement, and if you kind of get a note, cool, keep going. Try to be a little bit more disciplined with yourself and make sure you're getting nice tones. Again, maybe a good barometer is like, if someone was singing this, would that be acceptable to you? Or if every time they tried to get this note, like the volume went down or it was rushed. So again, it'd take me all day to go through all the different ways that you can bend the string, and there's much better YouTube videos out to check out about that. But let your your sense of tone and time still be kind of number one as you do these techniques. With slides, just really be listening to it, pull-offs, all that stuff. So that's all I really know about left-hand technique. Soon we're going to dig into the right hand.